On our journey to the moon from the Genesis block, we've just passed an all-time high in Bitcoin. It's at nearly $1 trillion in market cap. It's nearly $20,000 as we begin 2018. It is the when Lambo crowd who shows up. They've seen people handed 10x, 5x, 20x returns across 2017. And again, cryptocurrency, not Bitcoin necessarily, looks like magic internet money that makes you wealthy, and when Lambo.
A lot of people all over the world were descending on crypto conferences, currency conferences, particularly ones that when we first started going in 2011, we might see 10, 20 people at a conference. Here, 4,000, 5,000 people are showing up at these mega conferences, and people are coming up on stage and pitching ICOs, dozens of them on stage, one after another.
Like Bitcoin Miami, which is held in January 2018. There were Lambos parked out front, and people assumed you just had to pay the $2,000, show up at the Bitcoin conference, and when's my Lambo come? That's all you have to do. There's no hard work. There's no proof of work. There's no need to go through all the trial and tribulations and understand Bitcoin. It is literally just buy whatever ICO is being offered, and you too become rich.
When Lambo.
Sorry?
When Lambo.
What's that mean?
Okay, let's move on.
When Lambo, I think there's always going to be silly people. I don't think that has anything to do with anything. I think you always have silly people. I think some of this stuff with when Lambos and all this other stuff are parts of an old world that will die away too. So as we draw people to the spirit of what we've been doing and creating in the space of Bitcoin, I think that activity has a shelf life. It's not the long term. That's the here and now. Like, when we got involved, and again, Max was so helpful in showing us the way. We didn't look at it as how much was Bitcoin worth. We looked at the fact that we had a new way of doing transactions, how we can interact with each other. He spoke about a way that we no longer would be limited or controlled by people who never respected us anyway. So I think some of the leftovers of the residuals of this current environment is kind of spilled over into this new world that we're creating, but that's gonna go away also.
2018 continues the ICO boom. In fact, more money was raised in 2018 than the epic amounts raised in 2017. In the first 3 months of the year, a total of $6.3 billion is raised in ICOs. Q1 saw 59% as many ICOs raise capital as all of 2017. By September 2018, there was over $13 billion raised for initial coin offerings. These are genuinely magic internet money. It's just fabricated out of thin air.
Sure, because the market was beginning to deflate, but people were not believing that the bull market might be over, so they were buying into it still quite aggressively. And that's always the case, isn't it? When these bull markets start to roll over, the first 10, 20% drop is usually met with skepticism. It's just a little bit of a pause, and we'll be right back to new highs shortly. And money kept piling in, of course, and seemed cheap. If you liked it at 20,000, you're going to love it at 16,000.
There were, by this time in 2018, 146 crypto hedge funds. They exploded onto the scene in 2018. This compares to in 2012, there were just 9 crypto-based hedge funds.
The correction in 2018 was in part due to the fact that we started to actually financialize Bitcoin in a negative way. We started to have coin lending that wasn't backed by the actual coins. We started to see rehypothecation come into Bitcoin, and we haven't even seen the big Wall Street money yet. We've just seen Wall Street money from hedge funds on the edges, but wait till the big Wall Street money comes in, then it's actually going to be even more price suppressed. And the price suppression comes from the fact that there are folks that are accepting a Bitcoin IOU as if it's the real thing. When we store our Bitcoin at an exchange, what we own is not Bitcoin, it's a Bitcoin IOU, and we have no idea whether the exchange has promised more of those than they actually have in their reserves. But all that said, I think in the long run though, all of these firms who are playing this three-card Monte game with Bitcoin will end up being wrecked in the next bear market.
Sure, the crypto hedge fund is a beast, again, from Wall Street, and they generally show up late stage in the cycle, and there's a lot of activity, and a lot of easy money can be raised, and a lot of bad bets can be made, and a lot of tears can be shed, and it all happens quite quickly. And the evidence of this would be found in the Lambo dealers marketing directly to crypto holders. You know, they would fully expect at that point Lamborghini to come out with a model expressly for Bitcoiners. You know, that's how much of a speculation that this was driving into the Lamborghini market. And you know, when you have the shots on the news of Lamborghini dealers talking about the latest investment craze, that's generally the top. I remember in the '87 stock market top, they had a lot of reports of Porsche dealers getting a lot of orders from the instant wealthy yuppies and 20-somethings on Wall Street, of which I was one of them, and that was the top of that market.
Most people join during a bubble cycle when our industry is slammed and everyone's trying to onboard people into this new thing. And then shortly after we get a crash, and we've always seen in Bitcoin typically an 80 to 90% correction in some cases. But eventually that drives out all the fraud and all the people that weren't meant to be here, and we focus on building and making better technology and better solutions and better ways of onboarding. And that eventually leads to another bull market, and in Bitcoin's history it's always gone to new highs.
So you were also around during the dot-com bubble and burst, and during that time what a lot of ordinary companies did in order to attract that hysterical capital was they added .com to their name. Whatever the company was, they would just add .com. Here we're seeing at the same time companies starting to add blockchain to their name. Long Island iced tea company adds blockchain to their name. And what happens, of course, at the same time, the price of their stock does soar on the news of them adding blockchain to the commodities expert. Bitcoin is nonsense and I'll never buy any. 2 months later, I bought stock in a fake blockchain company that was exposed as a fraud and dropped 33% in a single day. That was Jameson Lopp tweeting about Dennis Gartman. Dennis Gartman is a very well-known guy on Wall Street. He writes the Gartman newsletter. Lots of big banks here on Wall Street buy his newsletter for his expertise on commodities. He was on CNBC 2 months ago dissing hard how Bitcoin is nonsense and I'll never buy any. Well, apparently he had to inform his investors that he's basically made a disastrous bet and lost big time on Riot blockchain. Remember this? It was like a biotech company that suddenly out of the blue changed their name to a Riot blockchain, and that they were going to become a blockchain company instead, and their share price like soared.